Well, Merry Christmas. Hopefully, a Happy New Year if you're watching this after, the new year. And welcome to 2021. If you don't know me, my name's Jason. I'm the Next Gen pastor here at Lakeland. And this past weekend, we actually broke down what I think is the biggest thing that we need leaving 2020. And it's interesting trying to write that message and come up with the truth that everybody needs to hear when all of us just experienced a very different year. I mean, that can be said about any year, but especially this year with the pandemic and with different job situations and family dynamics, we probably experienced 6 billion different years in this one shot. And that's really interesting when you try to core down what is God trying to tell us. And it kind of broke out later on as I was writing that message that the one thing that ties all of this year together is that we've been hurt or we've hurt others. We've lived this year that was full of tension and full of division and full of arguments we never expected to have happened. If you remember from the message, we use the illustration of the campfire, right? Where so often, if you're a kid camping and your parents tell you to not go near the fire, you'll pass your hand over it and you'll be all right because you passed over it fast. But if you slowly move over it and you let your hand sit there, eventually you begin to feel the heat and then some pain, and then you get scarred and hurt and bruised. And normally in relationships, we're pretty much able to move past these small things just all the time. Whether they forgive or forget, we just move beyond them. But 2020, just because of the pace of the year, what it made us do was it made us stop and sit in all of these disagreements over things we never expected to happen, right? I mean, I know people in my family, in my life, even in the office here at church, that were mad about things like masks versus not masking. They were frustrated by things like quarantining versus not quarantining. That happened to my family a lot. My wife and I are pretty conservative, and my sister-in-law was just not worried about quarantining a lot. And that caused some unique tension when we saw them in the summer, right? Maybe more recently, you've been maybe with some disagreements over Biden or Trump and how they voted or how they see the election unfolding continually. Basically, 2020 has taken all those things that normally we can pass over because they don't sit around for a long time, and it's made us just sit over it. So the one thing that unites all of our 2020s together is this need for forgiveness. And if you remember, we talked a whole bunch over the weekend about why we need forgiveness, right? We need to forgive because unforgiveness hurts us. We need to forgive because eventually we'll need forgiveness in the future. And we talked all about that. What I really want to settle in on for this video and for your discussions at home or for your devotion at home is to really come back to those how do we forgive people. Because over the weekend we talked about 2 different steps, but really I would say there are 5. And we didn't even go in order with those 2. I just thought they were the most helpful to get people started on this path of forgiveness. So with you and with your groups, I want to break down the rest of these 5. And I've used these in counseling sessions with myself and even with people as I've tried to help. So the 5 steps to forgiveness, 2 of them you've heard, the other 3 are going to be new. And I want you guys to take some time and break down which of these seem easiest, which of these seem maybe hard to do, and which of them have you maybe not even thought about before. All right, so the first one is actually what we said on Sunday. The first one is when you need forgiveness, when you need to forgive somebody, you need to pray for them, right? We said right action can sometimes bring about right feelings. Sometimes we have to pray for someone and care for them long before we want to, because it's what God has told us to do, right? Again, Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:44, one of his biggest teachings in front of some of the biggest crowds, he said, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Pray for those who persecute you. And we even broke it down, right, in the service on Sunday, talking about what that prayer looks like. It's not, I pray they come out to 4/tires. It is, I pray that they're still doing okay. And that's all it takes, are these small little, Lord, bless their day. Lord, make sure they're healthy. If you see on Facebook they're sick, God, help them be healed. These simple, small things that if we do them early enough, we begin to feel them later. So right action brings about right feeling eventually. So pray for them is the first step to forgiveness. Step 2 is where we actually ask God to show us our part in the situation. If you remember, we actually just shot really straight on Sunday and said, you are the villain in someone else's story. Whether you mean to be or not, you are the villain in someone else's story. So when you're trying to forgive someone, it actually helps to ask God to show you what your part in that situation was. And I'll admit, sometimes things just happen to you. But a lot of times, we had a piece in the very thing that is frustrating us and the very thing that is hurting us, right? James 1:5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. And this is the verse really around that, because if we're asking what we did wrong, we're going to need wisdom to find that, because our answer is going to be, I did nothing, it was all them. But with God's wisdom, we can actually settle in and we can see what it was that maybe started it or added fire to the situation. So step 3 is going to be search for your own forgiveness. Because we've just uncovered something that maybe you contributed to this broken relationship. We've just uncovered maybe something you've contributed to this uncomfortableness, to this tension. So we now have something that we've done, some way that we've hurt someone that we've sinned against someone. So that's where we just fall back into God's forgiveness. And a reminder there is Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You have too. And in that relationship, you might have done something to contribute to that struggle. So again, so far we've prayed for them. We've asked God to show us our part in the situation, and we've asked for God's forgiveness and sought our own forgiveness because of the things that we did that broke his character. So step 4 is where we we forgive as you've been forgiven. That's the other one we brought up on Sunday. Forgive as you've been forgiven. And we brought up Colossians 3:13. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. It's straightforward. We've broken God's heart. We've sinned against him. He forgave us. Now it's his command to us to forgive other people. We're not supposed to sit on that joy. We're not supposed to sit on that grace and just hoard it. We're supposed to share it. It's supposed to be a victory for all of mankind, not just us. So the situation, whatever it is you caught up with in the beginning of this moment where you thought, who do I need to forgive? What do I need to go through? So far, we've prayed for them. We've asked God to show us what we did. We've asked for forgiveness for the thing that we did from God. And we've forgiven as we have been forgiven. So we've chosen to forgive those people in the way that God forgave us. So what is the last step? The 5th moment here is to ask God to show you whether you need to make a reconciliation, whether you need to reach out. And I'll say whether you need to reach out because in some situations, the answer is just, I can't. Maybe it's a big enough deal that even though you've forgiven them, you don't want to go back into the danger of being in a relationship with them, or you don't want to reach back out to them. You don't want to open up that door again. That can be true. Forgiveness does not mean lowering our safety and just letting whatever happen to us. Forgiveness can mean protecting ourselves. But that's why we ask God, because he may call us to do something uncomfortable. He may call us to talk it out with someone. He may call us to connect to them. He may actually just call us to write it in a letter to them and never send the letter. But it's helping us close the door. Now, we said on Sunday that forgiveness is this open-ended case. We can take these 5 steps forward and come crashing back to the beginning. And that was my experience. So Lakeland is the 3rd church I've worked in. When I left my first church, I left in a really bad way, and it was my fault. So over the course of the years following, I've actually reached out to most of those people and tried to work through this process over my frustrations with them. One of them was a guy named Kirk. And I reached out to him through email and I said, hey, God has been taking me on this journey. I actually even lined out the 5 steps that God has been taking me on and what it took. I owned my part of it. I asked for his forgiveness. I basically unloaded it in this email. And I'm not a highly emotional guy. And I used all the emotional words because it was true. I'm like, I left angry. This is where I'm at now. And his response back was, thank you. I hope you're doing well. I was furious. Here I had been on this year-long journey to try to forgive him for the things that he had done to me and I had done to him, and I had done all this heavy lifting with God, calling me towards it. And I sent him that email, and his response was, cool. So here's the promise. When we're working on forgiving other people, it's our work. It's not their work. It's our outcome. It's not their outcome. So God may take you on this journey of forgiving someone, either from 2020 or from years ago beyond that. He may take you on this journey. And at the end of the journey, you may end up feeling like you have done it, and it has not changed their life one bit. They may not accept the forgiveness. They may not want a relationship again, or they may just go, cool. But the important part is that you've worked on forgiving, and you have been set free from your sin, and you have set them free from their sin against you. And by doing that, we begin to look more and more like Jesus. So here's your challenge for your small groups. Figure out someone that you've hurt or has hurt you and start working down these 5 steps. Because some are going to come easy, some are going to come hard, but the end of all of this road is this redemption where we begin to look and act more like Jesus. I hope you guys have good discussions. I hope you guys have good devotionals going on as you work through this, maybe on break, but we will see you back for Redefining Church. Rethinking Church, different series. Rethinking Church starts in January. I can't wait to see you guys then.